Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure. Hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with me, your host, Rosie DeCandia. Well, my friends, thank you for rejoining me. It's so nice to have you back where you belong, because I know I belong here, you know what I mean? It's some tumultuous times we're going through, and if I can lighten the load and be some entertainment, then that's what I feel like I'm doing during this very odd time. But anyway, I digress. Point is, you all know we're out reading A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And even though I don't normally do recaps, a quick recap was, since we're not doing chapters, is Ebenezer Scrooge then met with the second spirit who took him on the town, took him on the town, and they went to like the grocery stores and saw people are hustling and bustling and getting ready for the holiday. The bing dang ding ding holiday. Ooh yeah, celebrate. Anyway, point is, so he's doing all that, and the last thing we left off was like they were really describing like figs and nuts and all these wonderful things. So without any further ado, I introduce you A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So remember, we were talking about the city and what was going on. So we're still describing what's happening in the city because, as you know, Charles Dickens, like Washington Irving, there's a lot of exposition and a lot of description, but it really puts you in the mode and the situation. Okay. But soon the steeples called good people all to church and chapel, and away they came, flocking through the streets in their best clothes and with their gayest faces. And at the same time there emerged from scores of by-streets, lanes, and nameless turnings innumerable people, carrying their dinners to the baker's shops. The sight of these poor revelers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and taking off the covers as their bearers passed, sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humor was restored directly. It's like fairy dust. Don't you wish we could do fairy dust right now to everything that's happening in the world? You just walk by people that are being assholes and you just go, fairy dust, fairy dust, fairy dust, and you throw shit on them and you put it out and you make them all nice and kind and loving and compassionate and full of empathy. Oh my God, I would love that. This is the world I could go for, because I do think I'm a little fairy. I can't help it. I think I should have had wings. I'm Tinkerbell. Well, I still think I have Peter Pan syndrome, but enough of that. Okay, where were we? For they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day. And so it was. God love it, so it was. Oh, at least they know that one day in the friggin' year they should be nice to each other, even though every day could be Christmas and everybody should be kind and loving to each other. What a different world it would be, wouldn't it? Okay, I'm gonna stop. In time the bells ceased, and the bakers were shut up, and yet there was a genial shadowing forth of all these dinners and the progress of their cooking in the thawed blotch of wet above each baker's oven, where the pavement smoked as if its stones were cooking too. Ooh, so people are cooking their Christmas hams, their turkeys, their roasts, and all that other good stuff. Things that I don't eat, but who cares? Is there a peculiar flavor in what you sprinkle from your torch? Asked Scrooge. There is, my own. Would it apply to any kind of dinner on this day? Asked Scrooge. Look how Scrooge is like, what the hell's going on with that torch? Maybe I need some sprinkling. Ain't that the truth? To any kindly given, to a poor one most. Why to a poor one most? Asked Scrooge. Because it needs it most. Spirit, said Scrooge after a moment's thought. I wonder, you, of all the beings in the many worlds about us, should desire to cramp these people's opportunities of innocent enjoyment. I? Cried the spirit. You would deprive them of their means of dining every seventh day, often the day on which they can be said to dine at all, said Scrooge, wouldn't you? I? Cried spirits. You seek to close those places on the seventh day, said Scrooge, and it comes to the same thing. I seek? Exclaimed the spirits. Forgive me if I am wrong. "It has been done in your name, or at least in that of your family," said Scrooge. That's what they mean, the Sabbath, holding Sabbath, the seventh day, is the day of rest, right, Spirit? "There are some upon this earth of yours," returned the Spirit, "who lay claim to know us, and who do their deeds of passion, pride, ill will, hatred, envy, bigotry, and selfishness in our name, who are as strange to us and all our kith and kin as if they had never lived. Remember that, and charge their doings on themselves, not us." Oh shit. That is what we call people, where people like to use religion and saying that this religion is right, and God said this, and my God said this, and this God said this, and we are right, and you're no good, and you're no good. But at the end of the day, they're touting words. They're using it for their own ill will and their benefit. And we have to wake up. Now, do I think religion is bad? Of course not. I was raised a Catholic. But it doesn't mean being Catholic, being Jewish, being Muslim, being whatever you are is better than the other person. Every religion at the end of the day touts the same thing. It's all about love. But people aren't practicing that. They're using it for their benefit. Even people that are from that religion, whether they are the emblems, the people that preach. So at the end of the day, it's how you use it and choose to interpret it. Now, whether you're religious or not, it doesn't make a difference. Because if you're not religious, but it's just still about being a kind person. So for me, I don't care if you're religious or not. I'm a spiritual being. I'm not a practicing Catholic. I don't care what you do with your own life, because my religion is love, kindness, empathy, and compassion. And that's what I'm here to spread. And especially now, I think that if we could all spread a little bit more of that and get past our differences and see what we really have in common, we'd have a much better fucking world. But we're not going to go bitter right now. We'll talk about that in the woo-woo. Scrooge promised that he would, and they went on, invisible, as they had been before, into the suburbs of the town. It was a remarkable quality of the ghost, which Scrooge had observed at the baker's, that notwithstanding his gigantic size, he could accommodate himself to any place with ease, and that he stood beneath a low roof quite as gracefully and like a supernatural creature as it was possible he could have done in any lofty hall. Because this spirit is like a shapeshifter, and if he's not, he knows when to be big and he knows when to be small. And that's the thing, like I've learned over the years. Because I'm so gregarious and verbose and all that other stuff, I'm not always like this. I know how to read a room. I know when to be quiet and conservative and quiet, and be shy, not shy, but to calm myself, or when I can be gregarious. That's actually a good ability to have. That's all I'm going to say. And perhaps it was the pleasure of the good spirit had in showing off his power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature and his sympathy with all poor men that led him straight to Scrooge's clerk. For there he went, and took Scrooge with him, holding to his robe, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. Think of that! Bob had but 15 bob a week himself. Oh, that's all he made. He pocketed on Saturdays but 15 copies of his Christian name, and yet the ghost of Christmas present blessed his 4-roomed house. Okay, so Bob Cratchit, I don't know what that equals, but he makes 15 bobs a week, and I guess in those old-timey days, that was the money what was called. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit, Cratchit's wife, dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for 6pence, and she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan of potatoes, and getting the corners of his monstrous shirt collar, Bob's private property, conferred upon his son and heir in honor of the day. Oh, he borrowed his dad's shirt, so they're all dressed up for Christmas Day, into his mouth, rejoiced to find himself so gallantly attired, and yearned to show his linen in the fashionable parks. Aw, that's so sweet. Remember when people used to dress up? I still dress up no matter what. And now Two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose and known it for their own, and basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion, these young Cratchits danced about the table and exalted Master Peter Cratchit to the skies, while he, not proud, although his collars nearly choked him, blew the fire until the slow potatoes bubbling up knocked loudly at the saucepan lid to be let out and peeled. Oh, look at that. Just the way he describes all this shit. You're just watching those potatoes boiling in a pot. And you're getting the feeling of like the good cheer, and the kids are so excited. Remember when you got it so excited, whatever holiday you celebrate, you were so excited to be like, oh, yay, this one's coming. Oh, yay, we're celebrating this day, whatever. What has ever got your precious father then, said Mrs. Cratchit, and your brother, Tiny Tim, and Martha wasn't as late last Christmas Day but half an hour? Here's Martha, mother, said a girl appearing as she spoke. Here's Martha, mother, cried the two young Cratchits. Hurrah! There's such a goose, Martha. Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are, said Mrs. Cratchit, kissing her a dozen times and taking off her shawl and bonnet for her with officious zeal. We'd a deal of work to finish up last night, replied the girl, and had to clear away this morning, mother. The poor girl had to work on Christmas Eve all night late, and now she's coming to spend time with her family for Christmas. Well, never mind, so long as you are come, said Mrs. Cratchit. Sit ye down before the fire, my dear, and have a warm, Lord bless ye. No, no, there's father coming, cried the two young Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. Hide, Martha, hide. Oh, that's sweet. I guess Martha doesn't live with them. Okay, so Martha hid herself, and in came little Bob, the father, with at least 3 feet of comforter, exclusive of the fringe hanging down before him. Remember, he doesn't have a coat. He's using a comforter as his coat. All right, Lenny Kravitz did that with the big blanket. Remember, he had that big blanket. Anyway, okay. And his threadbare clothes donned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. Why, where's our Martha? Cried Bob Cratchit, looking round. Not coming, said Mrs. Cratchit. Not coming, said Bob, with a sudden declension in his high spirits, for he had been Tim's blood horse all the way from church and had come home rampant. Not coming upon Christmas Day? Martha didn't like to see him disappointed, if it were only in joke. So she came out prematurely from behind the closet door and ran into his arms, while the two young Cratchits hustled Tiny Tim and bore him off in the wash house that he might hear the pudding singing in the copper. Oh, isn't that nice? They're boiling the pudding, and I like this, that it's singing in the copper, in the bowl, in the pot. And how did little Tim behave? Asked Mrs. Cratchit, when she had rallied Bob on his credulity, and Bob had hugged his daughter to his heart's content. As good as gold, said Bob, and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Oh, it's always out of the, that saying, out of the mouths of babes. So Tiny Tim, he may be tiny in stature, but he is large in deep thoughts, and we like that. And they say good things come in small packages. Bob's voice was tremulous when he told them this, and trembled more when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hardy. His active little crutch was heard upon the floor, and back came Tiny Tim before another word was spoken, escorted by his brother and sister to his stool before the fire. And while Bob, turning up his cuffs as if, poor fellow, they were capable of being made more shabby, compounded some hot mixture in a jug with gin and lemons. Good for him, he's having his gin and juice with my mind on my money and my money on my mind. Okay, that's an old song. And stirred it round and round and put it on the hob to simmer. Master Peter and the two ubiquitous young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, which with they soon returned in high procession. Okay, they're getting their goose on. He's getting his drink on, and the kid's going to get the goose. to go and get the golden goose that's going to lay the golden eggs. Well, not really, because that's not the story, but still. Anyway, such a bustle ensued that you might have thought a goose, the rarest of all birds, a feathered phenomenon to which a black swan was a matter of course. And in truth, it was something very like it in that house. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Martha dusted the hot plates. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. In my own little corner. That's Cinderella. I'm just quoting all these different things going on. The two young Cratchits set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves, and mounting guard upon their posts, crammed spoons into their mouths, lest they should shriek for goose before their turn came to be helped. Food is being served, food is being served. At last, the dishes were set on and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it in the breast. But when she did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all around the board, and even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, beat on the table with the handle of the knife and feebly cried, "Hurrah!" So everybody was so damn excited that they were going to have a big fat goose and stuffing and applesauce and mashed potatoes and all that good stuff, and they were living large. That's what they were doing. They're having their grand feast, and they love it because, you know what? Even though he makes 15 bobs a week, Bob Cratchit, him and his family are still happy and satisfied. There's the rub. All right, where was I? Because you know I forget. There never was such a goose. Bob said he didn't believe there was ever such a goose cooked. Its tenderness and flavor, size and cheapness were the themes of universal admiration. Eked out by applesauce and mashed potatoes, it was a sufficient dinner for the whole family indeed, as Mrs. Cratchit said with great delight, surveying one small atom of a bone upon the dish. They hadn't ate it at all at last. Yet everyone had had enough, and the youngest Cratchits in particular was steeped in sage and onion to the eyebrows. But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Mrs. Cratchit left the room alone, too nervous to bear witnesses, to take the pudding up and bring it in. Suppose it should not be done enough. Suppose it should break and turn it out. Suppose somebody should have got over the wall of the backyard and stolen it while they were merry with the goose. A supposition at which the two young Cratchits became livid. All sorts of horrors were supposed. Oh my God, that's hysterical. So she's going to get the pudding, and she's afraid it's either stolen, someone ate that shit, or it's... So we know it's going to be good. I actually wish, I don't eat turkey of the goose, but I would have some mashed potatoes and applesauce in the pudding. I'd like to go to the Cratchits. At least they're in good cheer, right? Doesn't make a difference. They're in good cheer. Okay, where was I? Oh, Gewalt. Hello! A great deal of steam. The pudding was out of the copper. A smell like a washing day. That was the cloth. A smell like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other with a laundress's next door to that. That was the pudding. In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed but smiling proudly with the pudding. She got the pudding. She got the pudding, okay. She got the pudding, pass it over to me. Okay, like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half a quart of ignited brandy. Okay, yeah, they're having a little drink on too, okay. And then with Christmas holly stuck into the top. Oh, a wonderful pudding, Bob Cratchit said, and calmly, too, that he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage. What about all the kids she gave you? Hello? Mrs. Cratchit said that now the weight was off her mind. She would confess she had had her doubts about the quantity of flour. Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought it was at a small pudding for a large family. It would have been flat heresy to do so. Any Cratchit would have blushed to hint at such a thing. Okay, that's right, because no one's going to bite the hand that feeds them, especially, if the pudding is, they maybe can't have huge amounts to eat. You know, we all like to be gluttonous. They can just have enough. So they're like, fuck that. We ain't going to say nothing and hurt mama's feelings because we're just happy to get some pudding, bitches. Okay. Here we go. At last, the dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. The compound in the jug being tasted and considered perfect. Apples and oranges were put upon the table and a shovel full of chestnuts on the fire. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Okay, yes, that's one of my favorite songs. Okay, then all the Cratchit family drew round the hearth in what Bob Cratchit called a circle, meaning half a one. And at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass, 2 tumblers, and a custard cup without a handle. These held the hot stuff from the jug, however, as well as golden goblets would have done, and Bob served it out with beaming looks, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and crackled noisily. Then Bob proposed, "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us," which all the family re-echoed. "God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his withered little hands in his, as if he loved the child and wished to keep him by his side, and dreaded that he might be taken from him. "Spirit," said Scrooge, with an interest he had never felt before, "tell me if Tiny Tim will live." "I see a vacant seat," replied the ghost, "in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die." Dun, 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 dun. I'm stopping there. There's more conversation and there's more to go on, but I'm not. We're going to hang by a thread. That's leaving the drama, folks. That is some drama. Oh my God, I love it. You see why I picked this story? Because it doesn't make a difference. He who has so much like Scrooge is a miserable fuck, and he who has nothing like Bob Cratchit and his family have everything. They have love. They have compassion, they have each other, and they have gratitude. And that, my friends, you cannot put you cannot put a price tag on that. You know what? This is a great theme. This is the beauty of this story. There's a lot of themes with this story, but I think leading me into the woo-woo is, I know times are really rough for everybody. Everybody's going through the shit. It's bad time, and it's not going away right now. But we are upon the holiday season, whatever holiday you celebrate. And even if you don't celebrate the holidays, there is a feeling in the air, usually in November and December, right? And we have a new year coming. And guess what? We look back on this particular year, and like, this year was shit. And for all intents and purposes, it was shit. However, I'm going to encourage you to think right here, right now. How have you grown as a person? How have your relationships grown? What have you learned in this past year during this tumultuous time? And start focusing on the good that has come from it. Because I will say this, though a lot of shit has gone down, I'm talking politically, the climate and everything else, a lot of people have stepped up to the plate. Now you're going to say, well, there's still craziness going on. Absolutely, but there is still a lot of good that's happened. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to focus on the good that is happening in your life. Have you lost your job, but now you have the time to refocus on something new you want to do? Have you been inspired? Have you been inspired to become an activist or volunteer and make changes, not only in your own life, but help make change in the world? Have you noticed your relationships with family, friends, or whatever, your intimate relationships really change for the better? What has changed for the better in your life? Because if you look for it, my friends, you will see it. And that's what we're seeing with the Cratchits. Bob Cratchit makes no money. He's living on like littlest wages ever. He doesn't even have a coat. Remember, he keeps a comforter around him. He's got a child who has a health issue. His family, he's got a daughter that had to work all night. His family is poor, but they still find the joy and the gratitude for whatever they have. They're going to have that goose once a year. They're going to have that pudding probably once a year. They're going to have this joy and merriment once a year, but they're going to enjoy it. And the thing about this, they're creating memories, but that's the memory that they will hold on to every day. Do I say that some days shit's going to happen when you're not feeling so grateful. I understand that. We all go there. We all have a little pity party. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a little visitation at a pity party for a few minutes. But then you got to think about what are the beautiful things in your life. And we've talked about gratitude before. So I think it's really important to prioritize what good has happened during this time, what changes have occurred, if not externally, at least internally. Have you become a better person? And chances are, if you're watching this video, you're in alignment with what I'm saying, because chances are the dark people, the people that are like, they're bad energy, that's what I call the dark people, they're not interested in seeing this video. Because you know what? These messages are for people that are ready to make change, be the change, priorities, be grateful, be loving and compassionate. So I want you to focus on that. Who has shown you great compassion during this time? Who has really been there that you didn't even think that friend was thinking of you when they thought about you during this COVID and have called or checked in or helped you out? And you know what? Also, what have you done for yourself, for your family and friends? And think about how much you have stepped up to the plate. So with that being said, I think it's so important for each and every one of us during any time of our lives, in great stress and in great traumatizing moments and tumultuous times, to still hold a little candle of hope. And I know we're all hanging on by a thread here, but we cannot give into the darkness to the point of where we become apathetic, where we no longer find any hope. Am I saying I'm perfect and every day I'm rosy? No, I've been honest about that. There are days I'm meh, but I process those feelings, and I think it's important to acknowledge, process, let it go, and move on and start thinking about what I do have in my life instead of what I don't have in my life. And things, you know what? Everywhere in the world, everybody is struggling, so you are not alone. And that shouldn't make you feel better, but the thing is this, we're all feeling it. So let's, instead of combating all this anger and shit that's going on outside of us with that kind of feelings, let us find the love, the compassion, the empathy, the sympathy, the kindness that we can find for ourselves. Let's find it for ourselves first, and let's start emitting that. And I've talked about this for months. Emit that to the world, because we really right now have to raise the vibration. And the only way we can raise the vibration is holding it. And I know there's going to be some days that shit's going to fuck with you and your vibration's not going to feel good, and that's okay too. Don't be feeling guilty and don't be feeling ashamed, and just give yourself extra love that day, because it's really important to give yourself love during this time, my friends. Because if you can't give this love and compassion and sympathy and empathy to yourself first, you can't give it to anybody else. Remember, it all starts with you. You are the vessel. Your vessel, your body, temple, your mind, body, spirit. And if you don't believe in spirit and your soul, that's fine too. But this is a vessel. This is a vessel that you right here, right now can utilize to bring out love, compassion, and kindness. Now, once again, I discuss also if somebody is abusing you, obviously we don't just sit there and take it. Do you know what I mean? If there's emotional, mental, and even physical abuse. Now, I'm not saying you fight back, but you got to take care of yourself and do the necessary things to get out of a bad situation. But we're not talking about that, because this is not therapy. This is just in general. So I'm just going to encourage you this week to think about things you are grateful for. And if you need to make a gratitude list again, make your gratitude list. Make it. And maybe keep it in your pocket. And the moment you're feeling like crap, or you're just like, this sucks, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, pull the list out and read it. That's what I'm going to encourage you to do. So, also just want to touch on what the Spirit said about people using religion and stuff and misconstruing it. Just because, now this is for people out there that may just discuss, like some people are disgusted by religion. And you know what? I think for a lot of people, religion is a good thing in terms of giving faith. But when we live by the words that people are interpreting, that's where there's a problem. I'm going to encourage you, whatever religion you practice, I've said it before, and I think I said it months ago, to read the actual text for yourself. If you're a Catholic or a Christian, read the Bible. I have studied the Bible. It's an interesting book. If you are Muslim, study the Quran. If you are Jewish, read the Torah. Do what is necessary so you can become well-versed and you can interpret what the sayings are. And I'm going to tell you what you're going to find out. All religion touts it. It's all about love. So that's the truth of it. That's the truth. It's 4-letter word. Love. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. So love yourself first and love thy neighbor. Well, my friends, on that note, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to tell you that I hope right now you are staying healthy, you are staying sane, you are staying blessed, and I'm knowing and I'm sending you right now so much love. light, peace, joy, bliss, compassion, empathy, goodness, magic, fairy dust, abundance, prosperity, all the good things that we all deserve. Because as I give it to you, I receive it as well. And I call into it for all of us, all these beautiful things. And I also want you to know that you are enough. You are worthy. You are loved. And someone right here, right now, is thinking of you. Okay, and on that note, until we read again. All right, my friends. Stay beautiful.